The Autobiography of Benjamin Franklin, novel presentation by Elizabeth Friedman. Benjamin Franklin's life. Benjamin Franklin was born on January 17, 1706, in Boston, Massachusetts. Benjamin was the youngest of the youngest son 5 generations back. He was named after his father's closest brother Benjamin. Growing up, he lived with his father, mother, and 12 brothers and sisters. From about the age of 12 to 21, Benjamin worked as an apprentice to his older brother in his newspaper. In 1724, he moved away to London and received a job in the printing business. Franklin's Life, Part 2. A few years after moving to London, he came back to Philadelphia and became the owner of the Pennsylvania Gazette. In 1730, he and his common-law wife, Deborah Reed, had 3 children together, the eldest dying of smallpox at age 4. It was not until 1748, after he retired, that he could concentrate on his long-term interest in science. After he retired, he conducted experiments with electricity, and in 1752 he led the famous kite experiment. After many years of other conducted experiments, Benjamin died on April 17th, 1790 in Philadelphia, PA. Franklin worked on his writing from 1771 up until he died in 1790 and was meant to be his memoirs. The first translation to English was not published until 1793. The original book was published in 1791 and was written in French. The first title of the book was Even though Franklin worked on his memoirs for almost 2 decades, many stories were not complete, causing the book we have today only to be 4 chapters long. Due to this novel being an autobiography, there were not many literary devices used. Since the book was written in Franklin's later years about his life, I would say the literary devices used were imagery and flashbacks. The most prominent people in the book would be his childhood friends and family, such as his father Josiah and brother James and his son William. Other family members mentioned in the book was his uncle, who he was named after Benjamin, and his mother. Other than his family, there were a lot of mentions of other people in his personal life, as well as people he worked with throughout his life. A few examples of these people would be his common-law wife, Deborah, Andrew Bradford, and Governor Denny of Philadelphia. Throughout the time that Franklin was working on his book, there were many eras around the world. The era that would have most impacted Franklin while writing would have been the Age of Revolution from 1750 to 1917. Throughout the almost 2 decades, there were many historical events and eras in America. The 18th century was still the very early years of America, and most of the significant battles in America happened around this time. The first historical event that happened on December 16, 1773, was the well-known Boston Tea Party. After this event, Franklin tried to defend the Boston Tea Party, and as a result, the British government fired him from his job as a postmaster at the time. The next big event in American history at the time would be the publication of the Declaration of Independence on July 4, 1776. Benjamin Franklin was one out of 5 authors of the document and one of 56 to sign at the bottom. In 1782, the Preliminary Articles of Peace was written. This document was a very important draft for the Treaty of Paris. This document is again one of many papers Benjamin Franklin signed as a founding father. In the late 1780s, the mood of literature was taken an interest in diversity groups. In 1786, Robert Burns published poems chiefly in Scottish dialect. While reading the novel, one starts to see that it is a little all over the place, and a few of the stories are out of order within others time-wise. However, the book was very informative about his life and what it was like to live in the 18th century. This type of book is really for people who like books about history and the timeline of a person's life. I have learned that autobiographies are not my favorite reads, but if they are yours, then you will love this book. Thank you.